Welcome to this Pastel My Business online webinar. This webinar covers creating and maintaining your master files. This includes creating your customers, suppliers, inventory, assets accounts, and bank accounts. We will also show you how to import and export some of this information into and from your My Business Online application.
Great. As I said, today we are looking at creating and maintaining master file information. Now, the first one we're going to look at this afternoon are customers. Now, customers and suppliers are quite similar in terms of the structure. So what I will do is, for the sake of this exercise, we will look at customers in depth, in detail, and we'll just do an overview over the suppliers. This is to show you the similarities between the two in terms of the setting up. So if you go to your customer menu and you click on the customers option, when you click on that option, it will bring you to a window that will show you a list of all your customers that have been created. Now, as you can see, I've got 5 customers that have been created for the sake of the session, and I've got an add customer button there. So should I need to add a brand new customer, I would click on that add customer button. If you look on the right hand side of that add customer button, I've got a search where you can search for specific customers. In the event that your customer list has scrolled down all the way down the page and the list is quite long, you can do a search for a customer. And I can search for Peter, and it will list all the customers named Peter on the list for me. I can also do a filter on the right hand side of that. I can also do a filter of the customers, and I can have a look at customers who have bought today, customers who have bought this month, and so on and so on. Otherwise, I cannot filter, then it will show me a list of all my customers. Just for your convenience, you just have those options there available. Now, for this session, we are going to be adding a new customer, but for more detail, I have already got a customer that I have entered all the details for. So for the sake of this session, we're going to look at one customer, John Struben. We're going to look at that customer and look at the information that has been edited, that's been entered there. So if you click on customer John Struben and I click on the edit button, now it takes me to an edit window for this customer's account. Now, when creating a brand new customer, it requires a customer name. As you can see, I've got the customer name there on top. Below that, it gives me a category. Now, these are your customer categories. You can add a category at this point. It's just for your convenience. We refer to this as adding on the fly. Now, this functionality is pervasive through the application. So wherever you need to capture additional information, you can just add on the fly, and you can add information as you go along. So you don't have to go through different windows to add information as you go along. It's just to make you more productive, more efficient, and it's just convenient to have the ability to add information as you go along. Now, as you can see, for my customers, I've only got 2 categories. I've got account customers and I've got cash customers. So I've set up a category for my customer. I've given this customer a balance. Now, here you would add an opening balance. So if you are moving your books from a different financial application or from a manual set of books, you can create an opening balance for the customer here. You just give it the amount outstanding for this customer's account and the date of that balance, which would be below the balance amount. Now, if you look on the right-hand side of the customer's details, we've got an active checkbox, just to inform you whether this customer is active or has been inactivated. So I can choose to select or deselect this option here. I can enter a credit limit for this customer, so that when I'm processing for this customer and this customer has reached a specific defined credit limit, Pastel will send me a message that, hey, this customer has exceeded his credit limits. Do you want to proceed, or do you want to re-look at the terms of the customer? And lastly, on the customers list, we have your tax reference. Now, it is part of our legislation that for tax purposes, if you have been registered for tax, your customers need to have a tax number, and this is the field where you would enter your customer's tax number, so that if you are processing an invoice exceeding a stipulated amount by the legislation, then the customer's VAT number needs to also appear on the invoice. So by simply entering your customer's VAT number here, it just makes it that more convenient as soon as you hit the trigger, when you are doing invoices for this customer, it will automatically populate the tax number for the customer as well. And lastly, we've got an option to accept electronic invoices. Now, this is just for basically for your references, because what the legislation has further required that we have written consent from our customer base that they have accepted to receive emails, documentation like your invoices, credit notes, and so forth. So what you would then need to do is send your customers an email or a letter by post. Send them an email that from now forth they will be receiving their invoices, credit notes, or their customer-specific documents via email. Do they allow this? Yes or no? File that information, and in this application you just need to simply tick on that box that the customer has accepted that you send them documents via email. Great, that takes care of that information on the customers. Now we look at the tab panel for the customer. The first tab we look at is the address and contact details. As you can see, I've got a postal address there for my customer, and below that I've got a delivery address. Now I've got two links there at the bottom. On delivery address, I've got a map link. Now if I click on this map link, it integrates me directly onto Google Maps. So Google Maps actually shows me a nice bird's eye view of the location of the customer. So it just makes it easy for me to print out that map, give it to my driver if it's the first time we're delivering at this new customer. So yeah, we've got the convenience of just having a look at the customer's physical location on Google Maps. On the right hand side of the map, we've got a link to copy postal address. So in the event that the postal address and the delivery address are identical, all you simply do is click on copy postal address, and as you can see, it's copied the information down. If you look on the right hand side under contact details, I would give a contact name here for the person that I will be dealing with, because it may not necessarily be the same person as the customer's name, because your customer could be Macro, but the person you're dealing with is John Stribben. But for the sake of this example, the customer is John Stribben, and the contact name here would also be John Stribben. So I would enter the contact person's details in here, their name and surname preferably, and I would enter their email address. I've also got an email link on the left hand side in blue, which allows me to automatically populate the client's email on a new email box. So I can click on the email, then it will open up a new page for a new email address, a new email, and it will automatically put in the customer's email address on the to field. And then you can add your other information that you require to send that email. I've got a telephone number. I can add the customer's telephone details in here. And I've got a link for telephone number and mobile. By simply clicking on these blue links on the left-hand side, it will automatically dial that number for you. If you are using an integrated headset for Skype calls, so if you have a Skype-enabled phone, you can dial the customer directly from within the application, and how convenient is that? I've got a fax number that I can enter in here for the fax number for your references, and the web address. If the company has a website address, you just enter the web address in here, and if you click on the web address link on the left, it takes me directly to that website. Now the statement distribution gives me options on how I'd like to send my statements to this customer. Will I not be printing any statements? So I can select the option for none. Will I be printing them to the printer, emailing them, or printing and emailing my statements? So you just need to choose the default at this stage, and you're always welcome to come back and change it. Going back to our tab panel, we've got an activity tab. Now, an activity tab, as you'll see going through the session, is the activity tab is there on probably 90% of the menu options. It's just a bird's eye view, just to have a look at what sort of activity has been taking place in this customer's account. As you can see in this specific account, I had an opening balance for this customer, and I can view the details of when that opening balance was created, what date it was. I've got tax invoices and amounting to that amount, and I can view the details. I've got returns and so forth, and it gives me a nice balance, so I can have an overview of what sort of processing this customer has been doing. I can add additional context. So by clicking on additional context tab, I can add additional context here. So as you can see, I've got Peter Strong in the finance department. I can add him as an additional contact. I can add any other contacts here at this point. If I've got different people that I'm dealing with within the company, if I've got a finance guy, a distribution guy, and a clerk, and so forth, I can add all the additional contacts here. Just makes it easier and convenient for a source of reference, just to keep track of your calendar. So it's just convenient there as well. And if you look on that, on the additional contacts, you've got a plus and minus buttons on the right-hand side. The plus sign is to add an additional contact, and the minus is to remove. So you can just click on the minus to remove it and the plus to add. Going on to our notes. Now, our notes functionality is to add any additional information that is required. It's just for your own reference, for internal use. As you can see there, I've added a specific note here for this specific account. That's all statements and adjustments to be authorized to be sent to Peter. And Peter's the guy in finance who will be dealing with accounts. So you can just add all additional notes that you're required to add here. I've got user-defined fields. Now, user-defined fields are awesome because they are an opportunity to add additional information. Now, this is just additional information which Pastel may not necessarily have for you by default. So you may need additional information, having a customer's registration number, a customer's ID number, and so forth. Any additional information that you require for a customer, you can add this information here. And I'm going to show you where this user-defined field information is entered, so that by default it populates in the information wherever it is required. But for now, let's look at our sales graph. We can have a look at our sales graph for this specific customer. Give us a nice graph for the year comparative to last year as to what sort of sales figures, what sort of customer do we have here in our hands. And for your convenience, you can drill down on these graphs, and it takes you to a daily graph for the month, day by day, and it will drill you down further to the original invoices, to the original source documents. It's just convenient, it's amazing, it's beautiful, and it's right there available for you. The last tab that we have are quotations. So if you have any outstanding quotations for this customer, you click on the quotations tab, and then it will list the quotations there for you. As you can see, I've got one quote there. I can click on detail, I can bring the quotes up on the screen again, and at that point I can choose to print and email it to a customer, print it, give the customer a call, tell them that, hey, your quote is about to expire. Do you want to take advantage of this opportunity, and so forth. So it's just there as a reminder, if I can use that term. So you've got the information there. Once you've entered all your customers' information, you click on the save button at the bottom. It will, if you click on save, it will save this new customer and it will exit this window, bring you to a list of your customers. Or you can click on save and new. It will save this customer, and then it will open up a blank screen where you can enter a new customer's details. And basically that takes care of your customer's accounts. Now, as I said, customers and suppliers are quite similar. So I'm going to go now to suppliers. So I'll go to the supplier menu. I click on the suppliers option. Now, if you click on the supplier menu, you will see that the options are quite similar. Brings you to a similar window as I had for customers, with the search functionality on the right and the filters on the extreme right. I can click on add a customer. I can edit a supplier. I can edit a supplier at this point. If I click on edit as sports warehouse, and it brings me to the same information that I have for customers, but this would be information specific to suppliers. As you can see on the tab panel, we've got the address and contact details with all the same information, the activity, additional contacts, your notes, your user-defined fields. Now, for suppliers, you'd look at purchases. Instead of sales, for suppliers, we'd look at purchase graphs. So we can have a look at your purchase graph. What sort of supplier we have in our hands? Do we buy a lot of stock from them? What sort of purchases do we have? And here we can drill down as well. Full drill down functionality throughout the application. If there are any outstanding purchase orders for the supplier, it will list all my purchase orders there. Now, before we continue to items, banking, and so forth. I just need to give you a bit more detail on the user-defined fields, because as you'll see that we will come across the user-defined fields in a bit more information. Now, if you click on the company menu and you go to user-defined fields option, it brings me to the user-defined field options, which is a standard layout. As I said, this is for additional information. There is user-defined fields for customers, for suppliers, for items, and for assets. For the sake of this example, let's have a look at customers. I've got a text field number 1. As an example I used earlier, let's say we require an ID number here. So I'll enter ID number as I've entered on the screen, and if I need a registration number, I'll enter a registration number in there and any other information that I require. I can add numeric fields as well, and I can enter date field in here as well. Now the yes and no user field on the right hand side is that if you want to check certain information, let's say is this customer in Johannesburg, for instance. I'm going to use this as just a very lame example, but I'm going to use it nonetheless. So I'm going to use just these 2 examples for now. I saved this user-defined field information. Now, when I go to my customer's accounts, I go to customer accounts. Now, on customer accounts, I go to add customer. When I'm adding the customer, I go to user-defined field. Voila! Look at that on the left-hand side. It is so convenient. It's information that now you can input here. It's not mandatory information, but it is information that makes it easier for your user. They know what sort of information you're looking for, so that they can enter the information here. Now, at least your user can enter the ID number in here. They can enter their registration details, numeric values, date values. Is this customer in Johannesburg? Yes and no. So it's just there for your convenience, and that's basically how you set up your user-defined field information. Great, now that we've taken care of our customer, suppliers, user-defined fields, we're going to quickly have a look at our items or inventory. I click on our items at the items menu, and I'll go to items and inventory option. Now, as you can see, I've got a list of items that I've got entered in here. I can add a new item, but for the sake of this session, I'll look at one that has been already created, that has history, as it's nice and pretty to look at. I'm going to look at full gym equipment. Click on edit that specific item, and it brings me to details of this item. The description of this item that I will be buying and selling, or the service I will be providing. The category, I can also categorize my inventory, my stock items. You can categorize them by location, by bin, and so forth. In this example, I've categorized them by the type of equipment that they are. As you can see, I've got equipment, instructors, others, services, sports clothes, sports shoes, and so forth. So you can categorize your items there as well. Most importantly, your items. They are either physical items, which means that it is a physical good that you buy to resell, or that you buy and sell, or you have a service item. Be it you're in a consulting business and and you consult your time. So your time is your money. So if you're providing a service like a consulting fees, then you would create your items as a service item here. Now, if it's a service item, it will not have an opening cost, so there won't be detail. It won't be necessary to enter an opening cost for that item. But should it be a physical item, then on the opening cost, you can enter the opening cost of the value of that specific asset or vehicle or item, and you can date it that this is the opening cost as of this specific date. If you look on the right hand side of that item, is this item active? Do you want tax processing on sales and purchases? You can enter an exclusive selling price, only one price list for this item, so you enter the exclusive selling price for this item, and PAS will automatically calculate the inclusive price. Is there an opening quantity? So when you brought in the stock, did you already have stock in office? So you can bring in your opening quantities along with your opening cost here. And your opening quantities is at which specific date. So once you've entered all your information here for that item, we go down to our tab panel. The first tab is the activity, bird's eye view of what's been happening on, with this specific item. I've got notes functionality, as we've covered earlier, user-defined field, as we've gone into detail earlier on. We've got the purchases graph, so we can have a look at what sort of purchases have been taking place specifically for this specific item. So we can have a look at slow and fast-moving items on our shelves. Sales, we can have a look at our sales graph to look at how good this item is going out the store. So you can have a look at sales graph. Also, it's completely drill downable, and it's comparative from this year to last year. And also for your convenience, we've got your purchases versus your sales graph, which will give you a comparison between the purchases and the sales graph, which is quite awesome. Gives an indication of how this item is actually doing. Once you've entered all the information here for the specific item, you click on Save and exit the window, or Save in New to enter a new item. That takes care of our item. Now we look at our banking and credit cards. If you click on banking and credit cards option. Now banking and credit card option is not only limited to banks, physical banks and credit cards, but also your petty cash. As you can see on the screen that's on right now, I've got a current account, I've got a savings account, and I've also got a petty cash. It's just to keep track of money going in and out of the petty cash in the business, at our business premises. Now you can add a new bank account at this stage, either a bank account, credit card, or a petty cash. You can search for bank accounts, and you can also filter on them. As you can see, it's quite constant throughout the other tabs that we've looked at as well. And for the sake of this example or this session, I will look at my current account and I look at editing my current account. So I click on my current account, I click on edit, and this is the information that is required for this bank account. I need a bank name, I need a category where I can categorize my banks. This is a petty cash, this is a petrol card, this is a credit card, this is a check account, and so forth and so forth. So I can categorize my bank accounts as well. Alright, I've just got a message that the audio has been lost. Great, it has been restored. I'm hoping you can hear me, and I am continuing. Do I apologize for that break in transmission? I think it's just a network connection. Great. Now moving on to our bank accounts. Once you've categorized all your bank accounts, you enter the bank name, the bank account number, the branch. On the right hand side, you've got an active tab. Is this bank account active or inactive? And is this bank account the default? Now this is very convenient, the defaults tab, this defaults checkbox. This default checkbox makes it convenient so that when you are processing in the bank account, it will always default to this specific bank account. So if I'm receiving money from my customers, it will always default to this account, and at that point I can change it to any other bank account that I want to change. It's just there for your convenience to make you more productive and save you time from having to sift through a list of your bank accounts. So you can choose to make your bank account a default or not. If you have an opening balance for the bank account, as you can see, I've got a brilliant bank account of 3.5 million. You enter the opening balance for this bank account in here, and the date of this bank balance, when was it effective of. If I've got a branch code for my bank account, I would simply enter the branch code. And if I need any additional information for this specific bank account, I would enter it on the description for the bank account. Looking at our tab panel, we've got only this time around, we've got activity and notes. Firstly, the activity, yet again, bird's eye view of the sort of activity that's been happening in this account. Opening balance, what sort of receipts, payments that I've done, accounts, payments and receipts, any transfers I've done, tax payments and refunds that have been processed, and what the closing balance is of this account. So it's very nice, nicely laid out overview of the status of this bank account. Notes functionality to add any additional information that I require for this bank account. And once I've entered all the information for this bank, I can click on Save or Save a New to enter a new bank account. That takes care of our banking and credit card information. Now we look at our accounts. Now, as I said, accounts is your general accounts information, so your general expenses and so forth. So you click on accounts menu and go to the account options. When you click on the accounts options, it will bring you to a window that will list all the accounts that have been created in the application. As you can see, I've got quite a number of expense accounts I've created, one other income account, another expense, non-current liabilities, owner's equity, and so forth. These are just a few that I have created. Now you can click on add a new account, and you can go through and enter the information as you require for that bank account. But for the sake of this session, we will look at our accounting fees and edit that account and see what information is required for account information. Firstly, we need our account name, just details of the account, just details of the account, the category of the account. I'm going to take us back into accounts. Since I've got history on this account fees, I can't change the category. So I'm going to have a look at one where we can actually change the category, because I want to show you some more details, some very interesting stuff. Now, on new account, you enter the description or the details of the account's name. You can call it salaries and wages. So you give it an account name, and under categories, this is exactly what I wanted to show you, which is quite awesome, so convenient. The category of your accounts, this is very important. Whenever creating a new account in the application, you need to assign a category. Call it a financial category if you may, but you assign a category so that Pastel knows how to allocate these balances when printing your financial statements. So when you're printing your profit and loss report or your assets and liabilities report, Pastel know where to allocate certain balances for your financial reports. Now, as you can see, I've got cost of sales. Below cost of sales, it gives you a brief description of what cost of sales is about. Current account, also with this description, current liabilities, and so forth. As you can see, these are standard accounts, generally accepted accounting principle accounts, which are generally acceptable. So you can always go through that just to get more understanding on what sort of accounts you need to create. You can add additional information on the description for that specific account. On the right hand side, choose to make this active, inactive, or active. Give it an opening balance and specify the date of the opening balance. And the tabs here again, we've got the activity tab and the notes function if you want to add additional notes functions for the new account. Lastly, you can click on save and save a new to enter a new account. Great. That takes care of our account information. Lastly, I want us to have a look at our assets. Now, Pastel has a very nice assets register. Basically, it's a list of your assets, along with their categories, their locations, and so forth. It's a very basic list of all your assets and their locations. To access this information, you click on the company menu and you go to assets option. If I click on the asset option, it will bring me to a new window where it will list all my assets that I have created. For the sake of this session, I've only got one asset that I have created, which is the Toyota Bucky, as you can see on your screen. I can click on add a new asset, but for the sake of this session, let's edit the Toyota Bucky so that we can have a look at more details or what information is required for the asset. I click on edit that Toyota Bucky asset. It requires a description. How do I identify this asset? And the category of this asset. As I said earlier, you can add on the fly here, you can add a new category. As you can see, I've only created one category, which is non-motor vehicle category. You can also create additional categories, be it your land and building, office equipment, stationery, whatnot, whatever else assets category that you require. You can add the category here. Now you enter the date that you purchased the asset. If you have serialized the item or the asset, you can give it a serial number here. As you can see, that is the registration of my Toyota Bucky. Where did I buy it from? I bought it from my supplier, which is Toyota. The purchase price, the current value, and the replacement value. As you can see at the bottom, We have user-defined field information, so if I need to add any additional information for this asset, I can make use of the user-defined field information. I can also add additional notes for this specific asset. I can click on Save and Close to close this window, or Save and New to enter a new asset. Great. That takes care of our master file information, just creating them and maintaining them. Now, what I want to take you through briefly is an export and import functionality. Very convenient utility to make you ultra productive. So instead of having to go through each and every single customer and enter the information manually as we have gone through the session, you can simply import that information. Now, it is very important that you import in a specific format, because Pastel will only look at a CSV file, which is an Excel file ultimately. And to access this information, you click on the company menu, and for now, let's go to export data. Now that we've created some customers, items, and so forth, let's export this data. So I click on export data, and it asks me what sort of information do I want to export. Customers, customer category, supplies, and so forth. I choose what I need to export out of the application. I choose my date format. Once I'm happy with that, I export the data. When I click on the export data button, it will give me an option. Do I want to open or save this file? I can save it in a location that I'll remember, or I can choose to open it. For the sake of this session, I will open up this Excel file so that we can quickly have a look at what sort of information we have. As you can see, it opens up a nice Excel window with our headings running right across the tab, names, categories, opening balances, and so forth. And it gives us a nice list of all our customers, all our 5 customers that we currently have, their categories, their opening balances, and so forth and so forth. Now, what you can do is add additional information here. So on cell number 7, I've added Leco as a new customer. I can give him a category, give him an opening balance, and I can enter all the information here as required as per row. Once I've entered all the information that I have, I click on the Save icon. As you can see, my Save Disk on the top left. I click on the Save. It saves that information, and now what I can do is simply import that file back in. Now, for the export, Pastel will only export those options, which would be your customers, customer categories, suppliers, and their categories, items, and assets. So that's the only information that you will be able to export out of the application into an Excel file. And for importing, quite simply as well, very simple process, similar to what we've just done with the export. It gives you a brief synopsis what the imports data is all about. It details that it needs to be in a CSV format. That means it needs to be in the right file format before Pastel can recognize and import it. And as per the export, we can only import that information, which would be your customer, supplies, items, and assets. Choose your date format. Browse for the file. So you click on the Browse button. I'm going to browse for a file that I have exported, which is my customer list. And it asks me a question: does the import file column contain headings? I can check that box, yes or no. And then I can click on Map Import Fields. When I click on the Map Import Fields, it brings me to the next window where I can map Pastel database fields to the columns that I have on Excel. So it may not necessarily be called name and category here. It may just be column A, column B, column C, column D, and so forth. So all you need to do at this stage is allocate or map the information so that Pastel can recognize that for name, I will look at column Y. For category, I will look at column Z, and so forth and so on. So once you've allocated all the information, you click on Import the File button right at the bottom, and voila, it's imported all your customers into the application. It will give you a message of how many customers or items and so forth was imported. If anything failed, it will also inform you of what rows failed. It will also give you a link to the import block file, and you can click on Finish, and you're done with the import. Great, and that takes care of exporting and importing of our master file information. It also takes care of creating and maintaining your master file information.
Thank you for joining us for this My Business Online webinar. If you found it useful, please visit the Pastel website to find out about future My Business Online webinars or training courses. Alternatively, contact us on sales@pastelmybusiness.co.za.